What can you do with data which is contained within Wikidata? Wikidata contains location data or coordinates. In this video, I am going to use Wikidata to map the location of where ships have been wrecked off the coast of Scotland in the UK. We'll write a query to gather our data, and then our output will look like this. In follow-on videos, I have shown how the data gathered can be used to create this in Power BI and how to create this in an R Shiny app. But for the time being, let's gather our data. Open Wikidata at wikidata.org. And before I begin coding, to help you follow my logic, I am going to give you the name of a ship which we expect to see in the results. So into the search bar, I'm going to type HMS Royal Oak. And I'm going to actually scroll down to more and select the one that says Shipwreck off the Scottish coast. So if we click on that, our Wikidata record will load. Let's have a look at some of the sections which we will be using in our code. So in the top section here, you've got an item called label, and underneath it is the ship's name, and we will use that section. Next, we have the statements part of the Wikidata record. And here, if you notice, we've got an instance of and shipwreck. Again, helpful to us later. If we scroll down a bit further, we can see we've got the coordinates and the location of where the ship was wrecked. And down at the bottom, we are going to use the identifier section, and we're going to use the Canmore ID. Now, Canmore is a part of Historic Environment Scotland, and it's a good reputable source. So in future projects, it's going to be helpful for me to be able to direct people directly to Canmore as well as to Wikidata. So we will use the Canmore identifier in our code. In the meantime, if you were just to click on the identifier number, it would take you directly to Canmore's website. In a new browser window, I have again opened the home page of Wikidata. Once you're on the Wikidata page, if you look on the left-hand side, you will find something called Query Service. So if you click on Query Service, it'll open a new page, and this is where we're going to create our code. We are going to use the coding language SPARQL to create the query. What I like to do when I start coding is first of all write in English what I would like to do. That helps keep me right if at any point I start struggling a bit with the code. So we're going to adopt that approach here. So the first thing we're going to do is put in a comment. So we start by putting in a hashtag, and then we say we want ships which have been wrecked off the coast of Scotland with a Canmore identifier. Now we can start writing our code. So we are going to type in select distinct, and then we're going to put in the name of our first column, which I'm going to call ship. So question mark ship, and then we're going to put in a condition where, and then I'm going to do an open curly bracket, closing curly bracket, and then between the brackets I'm going to put my cursor and insert a few empty rows. After my closing curly bracket, I am going to type in limit 100. The limit 100 means that I will get a maximum of 100 rows of data back. Now, given at this moment we don't know how large our data set will be, and all we are trying to do is make sure our code works, for speed, I will tell Wikidata to only return 100 records if there are 100 records. Later on, I will remove this limit from our code. Now we need to create the contents for our column ship. So if we head back to our Royal Oak example, and if we go down the page to the statement section, if you hover over instance of, you will see that it appears with the property P31. We need that code. And then if you hover over Shipwreck, you will see that it gives the identifier Q852190. Again, we need that for our code. So if we go back to our query service, what we're going to type in, inside our curly brackets, if you type $ship, which is the name of our column, and then type in WDT colon P31. Now, if you hover over P31, you can see it comes up with instance of. We're now going to put a space and then we're going to type in WD colon Q852190. And again, if you hover over that, you should see it says shipwrecked. So let's see what happens now when we try to populate our column ship. Press the execute button. And if I scroll down, you will see we've got a column ship and it contains contents. Let's click on one of the contents and you will see it's taken us to a record in Wikidata. Here it's got the ORP GROM, and if we scroll down the page we can see that we have got an instance of Shipwreck. So it looks like our code's worked. That's good. Let's go back to our code and keep going. So we have ships which have been wrecked, and now we need to find out the coordinates of where they've been wrecked. So we're going to do space dot and go on to a new line. Then we're going to go back to our Royal Oak example and scroll down to the coordinates section. Again, if we hover over coordinate location, the property P625 appears. We're going to need that. And then we've got the coordinates. But this time we want the coordinates for each individual ship. We do not want the same set of coordinates throughout our data set. Whereas in the first example instance of Shipwreck, we always wanted it to say those specific words. This time we want the coordinates to change dependent on the ship. So if we go back to our query, we're going to put in ship space WDT colon P625, hover over it to make sure we've got coordinate location. We do. Then we're going to do space. Now we're going to set up a new column to take our coordinates. So I'm going to do coordinates, okay, and that should take the coordinates for each individual ship. In our code, we can only see a column if it appears in this top row. So up here, after where we've got ship, we need to do space, coordinates. If we don't do that, we won't see the output of that column. Okay, so if we now press our execute button and we scroll down, we can see that we have got our coordinates. Now, depending on what your first 100 rows are, you might see weird things appearing in this column, such as a URL, but we will fix that later. What I want to point out at the moment is we have got coordinates of all ships wrecked anywhere in the world. We've not yet narrowed it down to Scotland. And to do that, we are now going to look at the Canmore identifier. So we go back to Royal Oak again and we scroll down the page to where the identifier is. If we hover over the Canmore ID, we can see it has a property of P718. And again, the identifier here changes depending on the ship. So we want the identifier for each ship. So this is going to work in a similar way to that which we did for coordinates. So let's go back to our code. After coordinates, we're going to do a space, then a dot, and create a new row. And to our ship, we're going to add WDT colon. Then we are going to put in P718. And again, if you hover over it, it should say Canmore ID. We're going to do a space and then we're going to create a column for our IDs, which we're going to call Canmore. Again, if we want the column to show, we need to remember to go back up to the top row of our code. So we do a space, question mark, Canmore. Let's see if that's now worked. Press our execute button at the side here and we scroll down. We've got ship, coordinates, Canmore. That's good. So we have now got ships which have been wrecked off the coast of Scotland with a Canmore identifier. Yay! However, the one other thing that I think would be useful in our data set is the ship name. If we go back to Royal Oak, you will see that the ship name sits in this section at the top of the page, which is slightly different to the other sections below. We can't just hover over and get a number this time. Back in our code, after Canmore, we are going to do space, dot, and then set up a new row. For speed, I'm actually going to give you the code because it looks a bit different. So we're going to type service space wiki base colon label, because we're in the label section. Then we are going to do an open curly bracket and I'm going to put in a closing curly bracket. Then I am going to go and insert my cursor between our new brackets. Then we type BD colon service param with a capital P space wikibase colon language. Now this is the tricky bit. We're now going to do open double quotes, open square bracket. Then we type auto underscore language. Then we close our square bracket. We put a comma. We put EN. Then we close our double quotes and then we put a dot. Now I will put this code into this video description along with a link to the code as well, which you can find on Wikidata. Remember, we are creating a new column, so you need to go up to the top row again and add in a name for this new column. So I am going to call this question mark ship label. Now let's see if our code works. Press the execute button, and if we go down to this section, you can now see that we've got a ship with coordinates, with the Canmore ID, and we have the ship name. So that is us essentially got our code working. So that all that's left for me to do is take off the limit 100, delete, to see how much results. So if we press the execute button again, it will take a bit longer. And now if we scroll down the page, you will see that we have 23,770 rows of data that's come in. So we've got quite a lot of ships wrecked off the coast of Scotland. If you would like to see the results displayed on a map, if you go across to the left hand side and see this eye symbol, if you click on the drop down beside it and you select map, the results will render on a map. You should see this. or zoom out using the map tools. This is it zoomed in slightly more. However, we are going to return to our table, and to do that, we go back across to the left-hand side where it says Map, we click the drop-down, and we select Table. And that's us back to our original format of the table. There are numerous ways to export this data, and if you look across at the right-hand side here, you can provide a link, download it, and there's code examples as well. As mentioned at the start of the video, I went on to use this dataset to create this in Power BI and this in an R Shiny app. So please check out those videos. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you'd like to hear more from me, please click the subscribe button. Thank you.